Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there is a ton of news stories to get into today, so we're going to talk about some Impact Wrestling. I found the time to do it today, even though it's a bit late at the time of recording right now. We are going to talk about some Impact Wrestling. We are going to talk about Alex Shelley. You can see him right there. Now, the last we saw of Alex Shelley was earlier this year, January of this year, late last year, December time. Of course, he was meant to be involved in that big six-man tag team match at Hard to Kill earlier this year, involving Kenny Omega, the AEW World Champion, making his then Impact Wrestling in-ring debut. The original match that was scheduled for that show, if anything, was a bit of a dream match, really, wasn't it? What it was going to be was AEW World Champion Kenny Omega teaming up with the then Impact Tag Team Champions, and still the Impact Tag Team Champions in different reigns though, the Good Brothers, facing off against the then Impact World Champion Rich Swann and the Motor City Machine Guns. That was the planned match. Now, right before that match actually happened, just days before the pay-per-view, it was announced that Alex Shelley would not be able to participate at that event. He was replaced by Moose, who, if anything, when Moose came into that match, he was the standout performer in that one. He was the best performer in the match by far. It was incredible. It's one of the best performances that Moose has given throughout his entire pro wrestling career, and that big amount of momentum that Moose had in the sort of first half of this year, if anything, really started at the Hard to Kill pay-per-view when he replaced Alex Shelley in that tag team match. So Alex Shelley couldn't compete. He later revealed that basically it was circumstances, at the time we were told it was circumstances out of the control of Alex Shelley and Impact Wrestling. Essentially, he went onto social media and said that because of his day job as a frontline care worker, there had been a change in terms of policy, in terms of going to places where now, vaccines, etc. were available and interacting with people that might not be vaccinated, etc. It was, it feels like January was a million years ago, doesn't it, when it comes to stuff like that. Nevertheless, Alex Shelley, for the time being, could not compete. And we haven't seen him since, and he hasn't come back since. And I've had a couple of comments, a couple of messages, and some people, yourself, I've seen in the comments on some videos going, is Alex Shelley going to come back? What's the situation with Alex Shelley? Because in the meantime, Chris Sabin's kind of done his own thing in Impact Wrestling, right? We've seen him feud with the likes of Moose, challenge recently for the X Division Championship with Josh Alexander. So Chris Sabin's still doing his thing, and Alex Shelley's just kind of been absent. Well, there's been a lot of questions regarding Alex Shelley's status with Impact Wrestling, and a report by Fightful Select, they've actually done a recent interview with Alex Shelley, so there's lots of Alex Shelley information coming out right now, but they released a report and basically said that Alex Shelley is no longer working with Impact Wrestling. Now, he never had a contract in the first place. Alex Shelley was never under contract to Impact Wrestling. He had a handshake deal, a per appearance deal, whereby it was a case of he came in for a TV taping. They said, "Are you going to come in for the next one?" Yep. "You're going to come in for the next one?" Yep. "We'll keep working it out as we go along." Because he's got his day job, because he's got other commitments, he didn't want to be and couldn't be tied down to a long-term contract. But Impact Wrestling, given the history that Alex Shelley has, given the fact they had Chris Sabin on the roster, given the fact that at the time you had the North, Ethan Page and Josh Alexander doing big things in the company, people wanted to see the Motor City Machine Guns come back. They wanted to see them face off against current tag teams like the North, like the Good Brothers, etc. And that's what they did. But now, it doesn't look like Alex Shelley is going to be coming back anytime soon to Impact Wrestling, unfortunately. So this is what the report says. There have been a lot of questions as to Alex Shelley's status with Impact Wrestling now that he's been announced for MLW's Opera Cup. That was an announcement that was made over the course of the last few days and has been back in action. Shelley clarified to Fightful that the relationship between the two sides is fine, but he does not work for Impact Wrestling anymore. He also specified he was really happy to come back and work for them and do work with the North. He is open to going back and spoke highly of Impact's current incarnation, of how Scott D'Amore handles things, but noted they have a large roster and he's only got so many hours in the day, which I think is interesting. An interesting bit he said there. Shelley revealed he actually started talking with the MLW front office a couple of years ago, but the timing was never right to come in until now. He's a fan of MLW in its original incarnation in the early 2000s and specifically mentioned Hammerstone as someone he wanted to work with. So it's a shame. It's a shame. Alex Shelley and the Motor City Machine Guns being back was great, and it was great to see them back, and it was great to see them work with the North. It was great to see them work with the Good Brothers. It was a shame that he wasn't involved in that match back in January at Hard to Kill, because him being in the same ring with Kenny Omega would have been excellent, and it does suck that we didn't get to see that happen. and that's really unfortunate. I always felt that he would come back. I always felt it was going to be a case of, well, once things start to open up, and now that fans are coming back, and now that we're in a world where independent promotions are running again, and travel at least is a little bit more expanded in comparison to where it was in January or December last year, I thought he'll come back. He would come back and start doing stuff with Impact again, and I guess once time went on and he didn't come back, that would start to indicate that wouldn't be the case. And now he says that isn't going to be the case. Obviously, he's going to come out and say that he's happy to go back and happy to do more stuff with him, and he would be open to going back in the future. And he's put over the current management there, specifically Scott D'Amore, saying that he handles things really well, all that kind of stuff. But when he says there that they have a large roster and they've only got so many hours in the day, I think there's lots of different ways to read into that, isn't there? And what I mean by that is, so he's saying they've got a large roster. I disagree. I don't think Impact Wrestling has the largest roster in the world, especially when you think about the tag team division. The tag team division that had the Motor City Machine Guns, the Good Brothers, the North, and other teams in there last year was far, far stronger than the tag team division they have right now. If anything, that's one of the things that I think Impact Wrestling's kind of struggling with at the moment. They're having to make new teams. They're having to put together your Moose and your W. Morrissey to make a tag team. They're having to put together Rich Swann and Willie Mack just to make these teams. I know Swann and Mack legitimately are best friends in real life, but you know what I mean. They're having to put together these teams to try and come up with something because they don't have those legitimate tag teams that people recognize. Like the Good Brothers are the champions, but they're all over the place. But you don't have your Motor City Machine Guns, you don't have the North, etc. And I think that's a big miss for Impact Wrestling right now. So if anything, Alex Shelley and the Motor City Machine Guns would be more needed now than they ever have been, or certainly were in their last run there. So I'm not sure about Impact having this ginormous roster by any stretch of the imagination. And it's interesting that he says, and I've only got so many hours in the day. I'm not sure what he thinks about that. I guess maybe he's thinking, you know what, I can't commit to doing a 3-day taping or something like that, because that's what Impact Wrestling does. They have tapings once a month for 2, 3, 4 days, and that's kind of it. And maybe he thinks that, well, I can't take off 4 days a month. I can't do this. I can't do that. Maybe it's a case of him just saying, look, I can only come in, do one date with MLW or an independent date for one date on a weekend. I can't do Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, like sometimes the Impact Wrestling tapings go on. And if that is the case, then that's fair enough. But I found it very interesting that he said, well, they've got a large roster. In comparison to other rosters, do they? I don't know about that one, but it's a shame because he was obviously very well respected, and like everyone, I really enjoyed seeing the Motor City Machine Guns back together in Impact Wrestling. But that doesn't look like that's going to happen again anytime soon, but it's pro wrestling at the end of the day. Anything can change anytime soon, and that's what happens. So we'll move on. We'll talk about W. Morrissey. W. Morrissey did an interview with Cultaholic. A very good interview as well, actually, and he spoke about a lot of things. One thing he spoke about was opponents he would like to face in AEW, or names he would like to see from AEW come in through the forbidden door and wrestle inside of an Impact Wrestling ring. Now, when asked about some potential dream opponents, W. Morrissey told Cultaholic, I've already crossed a few of them off the list. Sami Callihan was one, and Eddie Edwards was another. Of course, W. Morrissey beat both. Moose is somebody for sure, which I think they're building towards there. I think he's probably let the guard down a little bit there, W. Morrissey. Of course, Moose and W. Morrissey are a tag team right now. And with any tag team that is two singles guys put together, it always means that eventually they're probably going to feud. Because if you've got two singles guys that are put together, the intention is to eventually split them up and feud them together. That's the story, isn't it? Guys come together, team, success, failure, split up, feud, make money. That's how these kind of situations work. So when he's saying, I've always wanted to wrestle Moose, you get the impression, right, okay, it's been pitched or someone has requested, I want to work with Moose, we'll do a storyline, we'll be a tag team, we'll split up, we'll wrestle. So that's going to be certainly, I think, the plan for the future, which would imply then I don't think we're going to see Moose versus Morrissey at Bound for Glory. That's too soon at this point. Maybe Hard to Kill, and I think I mentioned about the tag team division kind of suffering. Maybe it's a case of going like, right, why don't we have these two guys come together, dominate, become tag team champions, they can split up, and then they can feud after on. I guess it would add their eventual singles match. It would give it far more heat if they were legitimately very successful as a tag team as well. So I think that might be something that they look towards. A couple of other names he said as well, quote, Kenny Omega, he lost the title and hasn't been around much since then, but he's somebody I'd love to mix it up with. Christian's the guy, he's the top dog now, and he's somebody I've always wanted to wrestle, so he'd be top of that list. W. Morrissey versus Christian would be very interesting. I don't know if W. Morrissey is going to really get that opportunity. I think that Christian's days in Impact Wrestling are kind of numbered, and what I mean by that is, I think he's going to drop the title to Josh Alexander. I think everyone expects Christian Cage to drop the Impact World Championship to Josh Alexander at Bound for Glory in October. So unless W. Morrissey has a match between now and then with Christian Cage, I don't see it happening. So, I mean, it could happen, but I don't see it happening between now and then. But W. Morrissey versus Christian Cage would be very interesting. Another name that he said, Kenny Omega and Jon Moxley. I roomed with Jon Moxley back in Tampa in our FCW days. That's someone I'd really like to wrestle over there. That would be really fun. Again, as far as we kind of know at this point, don't we? When it comes to the Forbidden Door, specifically AEW and Impact Wrestling, it's kind of one way. The only Impact Wrestling talents that are appearing on AEW programming are the Good Brothers. Otherwise, it's AEW talents appearing in the Impact Zone. I don't know if we're going to get to a point where we see a W. Morrissey inside of an AEW ring. No disrespect to W. Morrissey, but I kind of get the impression as well that AEW aren't really, they're not chomping at the bit. They're not totally keen, like, oh, we got to have W. Morrissey on our programming. You have to remember what it's been like for W. Morrissey over the course of the last couple of years or so, and he's still got to win a lot of people over, hasn't he? He still absolutely has to win a lot of people over, and I think he is still doing that. So, in my opinion, I don't see W. Morrissey appearing on AEW programming anytime soon. But look, if he rebuilds his reputation, if he builds himself back up, and rebuilds himself as a professional, a professional kind of reputation about him, then maybe AEW would take a punt on him. But as of right now, I don't think that's going to happen. Another story, though, he mentioned about living with Moxley. He said, quote, on our first week living together, I nearly burned the apartment down by accident. I put a DiGiorno, is how you say it, in the oven and fell asleep. When I woke up, the apartment was full of smoke. It wasn't so much that it was irritating. It was more that for months our clothes smelled of pizza. And then he mentioned, and Kenny Omega, he's number one in the world, again, in professional wrestling. He earned that title. He deserves that title. You want to shoot for number one, so he's the guy I have my eyes set on in AEW. But again, I don't think we're going to see Moose versus Kenny Omega, W. Morrissey versus Kenny Omega anytime soon. One guy, though, that W. Morrissey actually has a very good chance in facing is Braun Strowman. And you can see it on the screen right there, because former WWE Universal Champion Braun Strowman has been heavily linked with a switch to Impact Wrestling, and the current member of the Locker Room, that being W. Morrissey, would love to wrestle him inside of the Impact Zone. Now, Strowman was released, of course, by WWE back in June, and was one of the promotion's more shocking departures during their ongoing cutbacks, budget cuts in the main roster. Now, of course, going under his real name, Adam Scherr, or Titan as well, reports have continued to persist that the former Universal Champion is heading to Impact. Impact executives have even teased that we could see Braun for Glory, with Strowman making his debut at Bound for Glory in October. Now, as I mentioned, during this interview that W. Morrissey did with Cultaholic, he did speak about possibly Braun Strowman appearing for the company. He said, quote, I would love to. I've never gotten to wrestle him one-on-one. The only time I believe I was in matches with him was the Greatest Royal Rumble in Saudi Arabia, and then a 10-man tag team match on Raw in 2016. I think it was the week before Battleground or something. I've always wanted to wrestle him one-on-one, and if he came into Impact, I would love to mix it up with him. I could absolutely see them doing that. I absolutely can. I think that Impact knows that from just a marketing point of view, from a presentation point of view, Braun Strowman versus W. Morrissey, two ginormous men inside of the Impact ring, is a big deal. And I think it's a spectacle, isn't it? And they can both go. This isn't like two big guys that can't work either, which is important to state as well. These are two big guys that can work, that can go, and would put on a damn good match. And I think everyone knows that they would as well. So Braun Strowman versus W. Morrissey, sign me up. Sign me up. I could absolutely see that being a main event for the Impact World Championship at an upcoming event, at an upcoming pay-per-view. That would be fascinating to see, and Braun Strowman into Impact Wrestling could be happening very soon. It's kind of died down, that talk about it, but it still feels like it could be happening in the next month or so as we get closer and closer to Bound for Glory, certainly. Finally, what I did want to talk about as well was Mercedes Martinez. She's been officially announced for the first entrant in the Knockouts Knockdown tournament. Of course, this was taped at the last set of Impact Wrestling television tapings, but we've seen it on social media now that Mercedes Martinez, she was previously announced for Impact Wrestling's Knockout Knockdown event, but the company has elaborated on her involvement at the show. In a new announcement on the official website, the company confirmed that Mercedes Martinez was the first entrant in the Knockouts Knockdown tournament. They said this was the actual statement, quote, the first entrance in the Knockouts Knockdown tournament at Impact's returning all knockout event is none other than Mercedes Martinez, who will be making her Impact debut. Martinez is a former champion and one of the top ranked women's wrestlers in the world. I've done my very, very best to avoid all the spoilers for this, and we won't be reporting here on the channel, so-and-so won the tournament or anything like that, because what's the point in doing that? You know, that's just, there's no point doing that. But I'm very excited, and I hope it does lead to something longer with Mercedes Martinez in Impact Wrestling. Not that I'm surprised she went to Impact, because I do think it is the best women's division outside of WWE. I really do. Even though I think the AEW women's division is improving. But given their improvements, AEW, and the rumors of the TBS Championship coming in, I thought she might be swayed to possibly go to AEW, but no, it's a thriving place, the Impact Wrestling Women's Division right now, and I think Mercedes Martinez is going to do an excellent job in there. But look, guys, as always, it's just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on all of Impact Wrestling's news stories we've spoken about today? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about Impact Wrestling, AEW, WWE, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community, drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube. Got the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or having come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.